In July 2004, the quiet city of Salt Lake City, Utah, was shaken to its core by the disappearance of a young woman. Lori Hacking, a 27-year-old known for her warmth and kindness, was reported missing by her husband, Mark Hacking, a 28-year-old who worked as a janitor at a local hospital. What began as a search for a missing person quickly turned into a shocking tale of lies, betrayal, and murder. Today, we are discussing a case that captivated the nation and left a community in shock. The story of Mark and Lori Hacking begins with a seemingly perfect marriage, but beneath the surface, a dangerous web of lies and deception was being spun. As the truth emerged, the devastating consequences of Mark's deceit and the tragic end to Lori's life unfolded. This case serves as a haunting reminder of how one person's lies can alter lives forever, leaving a wake of pain, loss, and unanswered questions. In the heart of Salt Lake City, Utah, Mark and Lori Hacking seemed like the ideal couple, a pair that radiated love, promise, and unity. Their story began in their teenage years, where they met in high school and quickly became inseparable. Mark, charming and outgoing, was known for his sense of humor and ability to light up any room. Lori, on the other hand, was warm, compassionate, and incredibly hard-working. Together, they created an image of a couple deeply in love and destined for a bright future. After their high school romance blossomed, the couple married in 1999. Lori worked tirelessly at Wells Fargo to support their household and Mark's ambitious dreams of becoming a doctor. To those around them, their relationship appeared to be a perfect partnership. Lori was seen as Mark's biggest cheerleader, always proud of his accomplishments and optimistic about their future together. Mark often spoke about his academic pursuits. He claimed he was studying at the University of Utah and had recently been accepted into medical school at the University of North Carolina. Lori was thrilled about their plans to move to North Carolina, where they would begin a new chapter of their lives. The idea of starting afresh in a new state, with Mark pursuing his dream career, filled Lori with hope and excitement. Their families and friends admired their relationship, describing them as a couple that balanced each other perfectly. Mark's jovial nature complemented Lori's more grounded personality, and together they seemed unstoppable. Lori's parents adored Mark, treating him like their own son, and they trusted him implicitly to take care of their beloved daughter. But while Lori focused on supporting their shared dreams, cracks in their seemingly perfect life were beginning to form, cracks that only Mark knew existed. For years, he had been living a double life, spinning a web of lies about his education and achievements. Lori remained blissfully unaware of the truth, believing wholeheartedly in Mark's dreams and abilities. As the days to their planned move to North Carolina approached, the pressure on Mark mounted. The foundation of lies he had built was starting to crumble, and he knew it was only a matter of time before the truth would surface. But for now, Lori continued to support her husband, envisioning a life filled with promise, unaware of the storm that was about to upend their lives. Mark Hacking had perfected the art of deceit. His charm, confidence, and ability to spin a convincing story made him a master at creating an illusion of success. To the outside world, he appeared to be a driven young man with a clear path ahead. But the truth was, Mark's life was a house of cards built entirely on lies, and each day brought him closer to collapse. Mark claimed he was a full-time student at the University of Utah, working diligently toward his undergraduate degree as a stepping stone to medical school. He told Lori and his family that he had recently been accepted into the prestigious University of North Carolina Medical School, a milestone they celebrated with pride and joy. For Lori, it was proof that all their sacrifices and hard work were paying off. However, none of it was real. Mark hadn't even completed his undergraduate education. Instead, he had been living a double life, carefully crafting a series of lies to convince everyone, including his wife, that he was on track to achieve his dreams. He faked transcripts, fabricated stories about exams, and even shared details about his supposed future in North Carolina. Lori trusted him completely. She worked tirelessly at her job, supporting both of them financially while Mark focused on his studies. She saved money for their impending move and envisioned a bright future together. Lori often shared her excitement with friends and family, proudly explaining their plans to relocate and start fresh as Mark embarked on his medical career. But the cracks in Mark's story began to show. As the move to North Carolina approached, Lori asked questions about the details. When would they move? Where would they live? What was the exact start date for medical school? These questions, while natural, began to overwhelm Mark. Each query was a reminder of the lie he could no longer sustain. Mark scrambled to keep his lies intact, but the pressure was mounting. He became distant, irritable, and evasive whenever Lori pressed for specifics. Behind the scenes, Mark's desperation grew. He knew that once Lori discovered the truth, everything would fall apart. Friends and family noticed subtle changes in Mark's demeanor. Once outgoing and confident, he now appeared anxious and preoccupied. Lori, ever supportive, attributed his behavior to the stress of school and the upcoming move. She remained steadfast in her belief that Mark was working hard to secure their future. But the weight of Mark's lies was becoming unbearable. The carefully constructed facade was beginning to crumble, and Mark found himself trapped in a reality of his own making. Desperation and fear consumed him as he realized that his web of lies was unraveling. What started as a small deception had spiraled into a nightmare, setting the stage for a devastating chain of events that would change their lives forever. On the morning of July 19, 2004, Lori Hacking's routine began like any other day. A dedicated and disciplined woman, Lori was known for her early morning runs. She had plans to jog through Memory Grove Park, a familiar trail in Salt Lake City, before heading to work. But that morning, Lori never returned home. When Mark Hacking called 911 later that day to report Lori missing, his voice was frantic, his story clear. Lori had gone for her usual morning run and hadn't come back. He told police he'd driven around the neighborhood searching for her, checking their usual spots and calling her phone repeatedly, but there was no trace of her. The news of Lori's disappearance spread quickly. Friends and family immediately rallied around Mark, organizing search parties and handing out flyers. The entire community became involved, combing parks, trails, and remote areas for any sign of Lori. The case gained local and national attention, as the image of the young, vibrant woman missing without a trace tugged at people's hearts. Mark played the role of the distraught husband perfectly. He cried openly during interviews and begged for Lori's safe return. He stood at the center of the search efforts, portraying himself as a man devastated by the loss of his wife. Lori's family, devastated by her disappearance, clung to Mark for support, believing him to be as heartbroken as they were. But as investigators began to dig deeper, inconsistencies in Mark's story began to surface. For one, there were no confirmed sightings of Lori at Memory Grove Park that morning. Surveillance footage from nearby areas showed no sign of her running, and no witnesses reported seeing her on the trail. Meanwhile, police began examining Mark's behavior closely. While he outwardly appeared consumed by grief, those close to him noticed peculiarities. His reactions seemed overly dramatic at times, and his version of events became less cohesive under questioning. Investigators also discovered unsettling details about Mark's recent actions. On the night of Lori's disappearance, Mark had reportedly purchased a new mattress, an odd decision given the circumstances. When asked about it, his explanation seemed vague and unconvincing. Investigators seized the mattress and noticed its absence from the Hacking home, raising further suspicions. As police continued their investigation, more troubling signs emerged. Phone records revealed discrepancies in Mark's timeline, and his behavior during Lori's disappearance began to draw scrutiny. Detectives began to question whether Lori's disappearance was truly random, or if Mark knew more than he was letting on. The disappearance of Lori Hacking was no longer just a missing person case. It was quickly becoming something far darker. The man who appeared to be a grieving husband was now under suspicion, and the truth of what happened to Lori was beginning to unravel. As the investigation into Lori Hacking's disappearance intensified, the image of a grieving husband Mark Hacking had carefully crafted began to crack. Detectives, armed with mounting evidence, were determined to uncover the truth about what happened to Lori on the morning she vanished. The first major breakthrough came when Lori's colleagues revealed she hadn't been at work the day before her disappearance. Lori had reportedly confronted Mark about inconsistencies in his story regarding his acceptance into medical school. She discovered he had been lying about his education, his career plans, and their future. This revelation had devastated Lori, and she confided in friends about the betrayal, even mentioning she was considering leaving him. Meanwhile, investigators found that Mark's purchase of a new mattress on the day Lori disappeared wasn't a coincidence. The original mattress from the couple's home was missing. When questioned, Mark claimed he had discarded it due to damage, but police were skeptical. The mattress, they believed, might hold critical evidence. Mark's alibi also began to crumble. Surveillance footage from the hours surrounding Lori's disappearance showed Mark visiting several locations, including a convenience store and a hardware store, where he purchased cleaning supplies. His movements didn't align with his initial story of searching for Lori. These purchases raised red flags, suggesting that Mark was hiding something far more sinister. As detectives pressed further, they interviewed Mark's co-workers and friends. They described him as someone who often exaggerated achievements but seemed genuinely committed to his wife. However, the lies about medical school and his increasingly erratic behavior painted a darker picture of a man spiraling under the weight of his own deception. Then came the pivotal moment, a confession from Mark's brother. Mark had admitted to him in a moment of panic that Lori was dead. The brother revealed that Mark said he had killed Lori during an argument about his lies. This shocking revelation gave investigators the lead they needed to focus their efforts. Search teams expanded their efforts to nearby landfills, where they believed Lori's body might have been discarded. It was a grueling and heartbreaking task, but weeks later, they discovered human remains consistent with Lori's description. The medical examiner confirmed the worst. Lori had been shot in the head, her life brutally taken by someone she trusted most. Confronted with this damning evidence, Mark finally broke under pressure. He confessed to killing Lori during an argument, admitting he had shot her in their bedroom, wrapped her body in garbage bags, and discarded her in a dumpster. He claimed it was an act of desperation, driven by the fear of his lies being exposed. Mark's confession sent shockwaves through the community. The seemingly perfect husband had been hiding a dark secret, one that ended in tragedy. Lori's family, devastated by her loss, struggled to comprehend how someone they had welcomed with open arms could commit such a heinous act. The truth about Lori's disappearance was now clear, but it left a trail of heartbreak and unanswered questions. Why had Mark chosen lies over honesty? Could this tragedy have been avoided if he had faced the consequences of his actions earlier? For Lori's loved ones, the answers would never be enough to fill the void left by her loss. After Mark Hacking's shocking confession, the focus shifted to ensuring justice for Lori Hacking and her grieving family. Mark's admission provided the prosecution with a clear narrative, but the legal process would still require evidence, courtroom proceedings, and a formal verdict to bring closure to the case. Mark was arrested and charged with first-degree murder. Prosecutors argued that Lori's murder was premeditated, citing the lengths Mark went to in hiding her body and attempting to cover his tracks. From the discarded mattress to the cleaning supplies and his calculated lies to investigators, the evidence painted a picture of a man desperate to protect himself, even at the cost of his wife's life. The trial gripped the nation. In court, Lori's family gave emotional testimony about her vibrant personality, her love for life, and the betrayal they felt knowing the man she trusted most had taken her from them. Her father spoke of Lori's dreams and aspirations, sharing how her life was cut tragically short just as she was preparing for a promising future. Mark's defense team argued that his actions were not premeditated but rather a result of overwhelming pressure and mental instability. They claimed that Mark had snapped during a heated argument with Lori, driven by his fear of losing her and being exposed as a fraud. Despite these arguments, the prosecution presented a compelling case. evidence from Mark's confession, the timeline of events, and forensic findings left little room for doubt. The jury was also deeply moved by Lori's family's pain and the senseless nature of the crime. As the trial progressed, Mark showed little emotion. His demeanor, which some saw as stoic, others interpreted as cold and remorseless. This lack of visible remorse further alienated him from public sympathy. In a decisive moment, Mark Hacking pleaded guilty to first-degree murder. The plea was seen as an acknowledgement of his responsibility and an effort to spare Lori's family the pain of a prolonged trial. While the guilty plea brought some measure of relief to Lori's loved ones, it couldn't undo the heartbreak caused by her death. Mark was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The sentence ensured he would spend the rest of his days paying for the crime that had forever changed so many lives. Outside the courtroom, Lori's family expressed mixed emotions. They were relieved that justice had been served, but remained heartbroken over the loss of their beloved daughter and sister. In a public statement, they spoke of their hope that Lori's story would serve as a reminder of the importance of honesty, trust, and addressing issues before they escalate into tragedy. The case left a profound impact on the community of Salt Lake City and beyond. It raised awareness about domestic violence, the dangers of deceit, and the importance of seeking help when life feels overwhelming. Though justice was served, Lori Hacking's memory continues to live on in the hearts of those who loved her. Her story stands as a somber reminder of how lies and desperation can spiral into unthinkable consequences, leaving behind a trail of pain and loss that justice alone can never fully mend. The tragic case of Lori Hacking is a haunting reminder of how deception and desperation can unravel lives in unimaginable ways. What began as the promising story of a young couple, filled with love and ambition, ended in a devastating act of betrayal that shocked a community and broke the hearts of Lori's loved ones. Lori's life was one of hope and aspiration. She was a woman full of dreams, determined to make a difference in the world. Her family remembers her as kind, driven, and compassionate, someone who touched the lives of everyone she met. The loss of such a vibrant soul left an irreplaceable void in the lives of her family and friends. Mark Hacking's lies and actions not only ended Lori's life but also destroyed his own. His inability to face the consequences of his dishonesty led to decisions that spiraled out of control, culminating in an irreversible tragedy. His confession and subsequent life sentence ensured that justice was served, but it came too late to save the life he had taken. For Lori's family, the pain of losing her will never fully heal. They have worked tirelessly to keep her memory alive, sharing her story in hopes of raising awareness about the importance of truth, mental health, and seeking help in times of crisis. This case continues to resonate with people across the country, serving as a stark warning of the dangers of unchecked deception and the devastating consequences of unresolved conflicts. Lori's story has inspired many to reevaluate the importance of honesty and the need to address issues before they spiral out of control. In the end, the story of Lori and Mark Hacking is a heartbreaking tale of love, lies, and the ultimate betrayal. It reminds us all of the fragility of trust and the devastating cost of its violation. Lori's legacy lives on, urging us to strive for honesty, compassion, and understanding in our own lives, so that tragedies like this one might be prevented in the future. What are your thoughts on this tragic case? Could anything have prevented the outcome? Share your thoughts and reflections in the comments below.